So my topic is mental health, and my main claim is that high school has a negative effect on students' mental health. I have three supporting claims. My first one is that students are overworked, and because of the amount they are required to accomplish, they develop poor sleeping habits, among other negative consequences. My second supporting claim is that high schools base intelligence and worth off of numbers, which feeds into a culture that values percentages and letter grades over the quality of a person. And my third and final supporting claim is that schools promote competition, which leads students to constantly compare themselves to their peers, which ultimately leaves them feeling inadequate. I'd like to start with a quote from Stanford Medicine about a girl named Chloe, and she was 16 when she came home from high school, and she had a panic attack, and she said, "I think it was from the accumulated stress, the fear over my grades, the lack of sleep, and the crushing sense of responsibility. High school is a very hard place to be." And I think this is relatable to most of us here as college students because we've been through high school, so we understand firsthand the anxiety and the pressure that high school can create, and also the toll that it can take on our bodies. So for my first supporting claim, students are overworked, and because of the amount they are required to accomplish, they develop poor sleeping habits, among other negative consequences. According to the most recent national poll, more than 87% of U.S. high school students get far less sleep than the recommended 8 to 10 hours of sleep each night. And maybe to us, it doesn't seem that out of the ordinary, but a lack of sleep can be a serious threat and can have severe repercussions such as anxiety, depression, and even thoughts of suicide. The American Psychology Association said that of the teens who reported stress, 40% said they neglected responsibilities at home because of the stress, 32% said they experienced headaches because of the stress, 26% reported snapping at or being short with their classmates or teammates when under the stress, and of the teens who reported stress, 40% of them said they felt irritable or angry, and 36% said they felt anxious or nervous. So not only are high schoolers stressed, but that stress is causing other social and mental issues. According to the Parent Resource Program, each day in our nation there are an average of over 5,240 suicide attempts by young people grades 7 through 12. And I understand that there are many factors that go into suicide and disorders such as anxiety and depression, but I don't think that it's a coincidence that these children are from grades 7 through 12, and I think the stress of high school is definitely a factor. According to USA Today, 22,000 students across U.S. high schools were interviewed, and they were asked how they felt in school, and the top 3 responses were all negative. They were tired, stressed, and bored. For my second supporting claim, high schools base intelligence and worth off of numbers, which feeds into a culture that values percentages and letter grades over the quality of a person. Our generation is incredibly number-driven. We think of the economically and financially smart choice, and we place a heavy value on money, and that on a smaller high school scale. We base our value off of test grades, SAT scores, and GPAs. And it's getting to the point where students are willing to sacrifice their morality for their grade, for example, cheating or taking the easy way out. A researcher at Yale University named Mark Burkett said, "It's hard to concentrate and it's hard to do well in school if your brain is constantly having to respond to stress." And there's kind of an irony that in high school there's a constant pressure to always perform at your best, but you truly can't do your best if you're sleep deprived or stressed or overly anxious. So for my third and final supporting claim, schools promote competition, which leads students to constantly compare themselves to their peers, which ultimately leaves them feeling inadequate. Everything in high school is a competition, academically and also outside of academics, from class rank to starters and statistics on sports teams and the amount of acceptance letters you receive from colleges. According to an NYU study, academic, athletic, social, and personal challenges are domains of good stress for high school and age youth, but that good stress can quickly become overwhelming and it can become bad stress. So while I think high school builds character and teaches many valuable life lessons, I think through the process we're losing sight of things that truly matter, the most important being our mental health. So to conclude, I think high school has a negative effect on students' mental health. My first supporting claim was that students are overworked, and because of the amount they are required to accomplish, they develop poor sleeping habits, among other negative consequences. My second was that high schools base intelligence and worth off of numbers, which feeds into a culture that values percentages and letter grades over the quality of a person. And lastly, schools promote competition, which leads students to constantly compare themselves to their peers, which ultimately leaves them feeling inadequate.
All right, the proposition's identified. There's a good preview. The structure is reasonably clear in the body of the speech. Some of the supporting points, I think, do continue to make presuppositions without a demonstration that there's a relationship to the subject that you're talking about. There's, for example, on that very first point, you had evidence about the lack of sleep that students have, but there wasn't any evidence linking that to the workload that the students have, and that was the connection. That's the causality point in that particular argument. And there are a couple other places where we have the same sort of thing. However, you do have good information about some of the ways that students feel about high school, some of the things that they are faced with. There's not much in the way of quantification except that we've got one piece of data that says that we've got over 5,200 attempted suicides every day. That seems like an awful lot. I'd have to do the math on that, and I don't know that that's wrong. I just, that seems like an overwhelming number. And the link to what's going on in school, so I think needs to be a little bit stronger there. You're pretty consistent about citing the sources during the presentation. Your presentation is a little bit too much reading that's going on. There's a nice summary at the end of the speech, and I know what your argument is, but you might want to get that content pumped up a little bit more. All right, thank you.